Om Sahana Bhavato Sahanau Bhunakto Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So, we'll continue from where we left last time. And as you all know, the first and third Saturday, which happens to be the class, the talk on Vedanta and the science of human possibilities. And instead of conducting it at the Vedanta Centre, we have decided to hold these classes at Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, as you all know. The timing, however, today it is 5 to 6. We are a bit late because we had to change some tube station, change a lot of trains and come here. But from next week, next class onwards, that is the alternate Saturday, the third Saturday of this month, it will be held at 4 p.m. instead of 5. So that will be, there is a minor change of timing. Please note, of course, you will be sent the links. Those who are attending online can attend from 4 o'clock. So we'll begin. In our previous class, we were discussing that broadly speaking, a human personality or a human being lives on 5 different levels. In Sanskrit, the term used is koshas. Koshas means in increasing order of subtlety. I mean, you start from the gross to the subtle. There are 5 levels. Of course, all of you know this. We have discussed it several times and also in the previous class, but it's good to recapitulate what we discussed. So the 5 different levels, which are also known by the technical name koshas. Now, koshas are just, the literal meaning is they are coverings, but it's not like they are coverings as in maybe you can find in different items where one coat or one cover covers the inner layer, or maybe coaxial tubes, one fitting into the other, the smallest one at the center in the middle, and then you cover it with, it's not like that. The 5 coats or the 5 covers or 5 koshas, they interpenetrate each other. For example, we have the Annamaya kosha, which is the body, and finer than that is the Pranamaya kosha, the living force which animates this body, this physical body. So this is the psychophysical system. Psycho means the mental side of our personality, and physical is the physical aspect of our personality, which is divided again into 2. One is subtle and not seen but felt. It can be perceived. Definitely, it can be perceived through the agency of the body. So we have the Annamaya kosha, the physical body with its complex mechanism. There are so many things. And something which animates that physical body, which again is divided into 5. Pranamaya kosha, there are 5 pranas according to Vedanta. It makes our understanding a bit easier. It's not a watertight compartment, but when you say the living force which animates the body, you always mean these 5 pranas which have different functions. For convenience, they have been divided into 5 different functions: prana, apana, samana, vyana, and udana. We have discussed it many times, so I'll not repeat that. But this is the second layer, or the second layer, which is more subtle than the Annamaya kosha, but not as subtle as the third layer. The third layer, so that is the spiritual is the innermost, but before that, we have the physical, then we have the aesthetic. You can say the prana gives rise to prana manipulates the body in different ways, so that the different forms of art or the different forms of performing arts or even other arts which involve the movement of the body, they are manipulated by this second level. That is why it is known as aesthetic level, or you can simply say pranamaya kosha, or the vital sheath, vital kosha. Slightly subtle than that is the manomaya kosha, or what is known as the intellectual aspect of our personality. So what do you mean by intellectual? According to Vedanta, the mind is divided into two distinct parts. Distinct in the sense their functions are different. It's not that we have two minds, the mind is the same, but it operates at different levels. The lower level is the reactive mind, which is also known as manas, and that gives rise to the intellectual part of intellectual. I mean, by intellectual, I do not mean the buddhi part of it, though buddhi is very often translated as intellect. But I am not talking of the wisdom part of it. Intellect, as in, we have certain skills of the body as well as of the prana, which we develop, and also we have logical skills, analytical skills, and many other skills which we require for developing our personality. They form the lower part of the mind. Though a lot of importance is given in Western psychology, where people think that a highly refined intellect is more than enough. But Vedanta goes a step further. They said it's very good to have a fine intellect. Of course, we start with the basics, a strong body with all the pranas, the life forces completely in control. That is the ideal human being as described in the Taittiriya Upanishad. In the Taittiriya Upanishad, which is one of the texts of Vedanta, they say balistha. Balistha means a strong body and with a strong prana. It implies strong prana. That means you have complete control over the functions of your body. You do not succumb to various weaknesses of the body and diseases and other things. So that is the ideal of physical fitness, a strong annamaya kosha, which is animated by a strong pranamaya kosha. All the pranas, if they function properly, according to Ayurveda, a person possesses good health. So these are at the physical level. But a strong manomaya kosha, which is our reactive mind, and that a strong manomaya kosha implies that you respond to situations, you respond to actions, and the reactions that the way you react, it is all in a very educated way. You respond in a particular way, in a very skillful way. So that reaction, that reactive mind gives rise to many skills. They may be physical skills, they may be purely mental skills, analytical skills, emotional skills, singing skills. There are so many ways that one can develop one's intellect. I'm to just differentiate it from the Eastern concept of intellect or buddhi. This intellect, you can say, they form part of the various intelligences which Howard Gardner has listed. He says there are analytical skills, kinesthetic skills, where there are other skills, musical skills, and there are visual skills. So again, those skills have been divided into 8 or 9. Intrapersonal skills, interpersonal skills. So there are they have tried, Western psychology, especially modern psychology, has tried to divide those skills into different types. And you may be skilled in one, but you may not be skilled in something else. So a harmony or a balance of all these skills would make an ideal intellectual person. One may have lopsided development, one may be very good in certain skills, So he may have a certain type of intelligence, but that doesn't mean he is superior to somebody else who possesses some other skills. He may have musical skills, he may have visual skills, and he can do some things better than this person. Some people may be very good at analysis and logical skills. So a lot of differentiation or diversity you can see when you come to the Manomaya Kosha level. So that is what is meant by the third level of human existence. And man is capable of living in all these levels. He can be a pure brute, physically very strong, but mentally absolutely zero. I mean, with limited skills, but physically may be very strong. So you'll find a variety of personalities based on the permutations and combinations of these five levels of personal existences which a human being has. So this topic which we discussed last time was that human being is a graded organization, and above this, Indian psychology or Vedanta says there are two more levels which are often neglected. They form part of the intellectual skills in Western psychology because the idea of spirit is not there. Now, what is this idea of spirit? There are two more koshas. Our Vedanta is gone, or the psychology based on Vedanta or based on the philosophy of yoga has gone a little further. They said it's not just the intellectual skills that determine that determines a human being's personality. It even does not describe his mind completely. There is a higher aspect of the mind which is known as Vijnana. Vijnana, not it has been Vijnana in vernacular Indian languages means just science, not spiritual science. But here Vijnana means Vijnanamaya Kosha means the higher mind, that is Buddhi, which is unique to human beings, especially those with enhanced sensitivities or a spiritual mooring. Somebody who has a spiritual mooring or is inclined towards spirituality, his life starts by the development of the Vijnanamaya Kosha. That is known by a very technical word. That aspect of the mind is known as Buddhi. It is the light of Buddhi, the light of wisdom that interpenetrates all the lower three koshas, including the intellectual sheath. The Manomaya Kosha is illumined by this. So one may be very intelligent, but he may not have the power to make the right choices. His intelligence may be used for self-destruction or destruction of other people. So intellectual capacity or ability does not guarantee that a personality is evolved. So what gives rise to evolution? According to Vedanta, it is this fourth layer, which is considered to be the development of which is considered to be the beginning of spirituality. So when all the material achievements, material skills are acquired, not necessarily in the same order, like some people may be physically very strong, but intellectually not very strong. So when we come to the three lower levels, as I recapitulated before you, we have to remember that Vedanta places a lot of importance on the Vijnanamaya Kosha, the lower three levels at which human beings exist, the physical Annamaya Kosha, the body, which is animated by the Pranamaya Kosha, a strong body with a strong, well-developed Pranamaya Kosha, which makes use of all the different organs of the body. Suppose there is a human being with very well developed body, and also he has trained his body in such a way that it is totally under his control with all the five pranas, as I told you. To just recapitulate, I'll say the five pranas. One is responsible for our breath, breathing, that is known as prana. Apana is another force which all the motions which gravitate towards downward, which go downward, is known as apana. Samana is the spreading force which results in digestion and assimilation of the food that we eat. So you need some food, some force to evenly distribute the food. So that is the function of samana. Even in the circulation of blood, taking the oxygen to all the different cells of the body, that is done by this samana vayu. Then, as I told you, there is the other one, prana, as I told you, is the breath. It's not just the beating of the heart, but also the breath, the power that gives us control over our breathing, and as a result supplies oxygen to the entire body, the beating of the heart as well as the pumping of the lungs, the pumping motion. But all of them are controlled by a power which is known as the nervous energy of the body. So the spinal cord and the cerebrospinal system, which is there in the body, helps us to regulate the other pranas. And they help us in not only in our breathing, but also our assimilation, digestion. So according to the Ayurveda or the Indian Vedantic medical science, they say that any disturbance in these 5 pranas, and the other is Udana, which maintains the body temperature. We have discussed this many times. It is an anti-gravity force. Things that make you jump up and do certain things. You require a lot of energy to go against gravity. That is Udana. Udana means that which helps you to rise. And it also has another function to regulate the body temperature and keep it so that no matter how cold the surrounding is, your body maintains a particular temperature. So that is another prana which is very important, the Udana Vayu or Udana Prana. But all these Pancha Pranas, if there is any imbalance, you say you are sick or your body doesn't respond, the vital forces do not regulate it, and you feel uneasy, and sickness is the result. Then you cure it with different techniques. Ayurveda has its own system, allopathy has its own system, which stimulates either temporarily or permanently. It solves the problem, but it is not a permanent solution. We come to the psychosomatic diseases where the mind, the reactive mind, as I told you, the third layer of our human personality, which has a great impact, which has often been neglected in modern psychology. Though they recognize the importance of diseases which are known as psychosomatic diseases, the impact of mind on this prana has been neglected, in the sense we do not consider that many of our diseases, anxieties, worries and all lead, because of wrong thinking, lead to disturbance in these prana, these 5 pranas, and any imbalance impacts the body. Similarly, the other way around, if you consider human personality from gross to subtle, you find that any changes in the body, any wrong eating habits, again causes the prana to be disturbed, and it disturbs the mind. So it acts both ways. This mind is like this whole human personality is like a sandwich. You have the lower part, which is the body and the prana. Then there is the reactive mind in between. And on the top, as I said, there are 2 layers. The Vijnanamaya Kosha, which is the Buddhi part of it. Buddhi in the sense, it's the wisdom. The wisdom which tells the mind what to do, what not to do. In fact, if you see, our whole life is made of right or wrong choices. Every time, every moment, in fact, we think we make choices only once in a while. It's not so. Every habit that you form, every decision that you take, every decision you decide, every career that you choose, everything depends on the right choice at the right time. One wrong choice means you lose your way, and then it takes a lot of energy to correct that wrong choice. So the power to make the right choices in life so that you reach the level of fulfillment you want to is what is known as buddhi. So buddhi is that faculty which helps to regulate the mind. The mind regulates the prana, prana regulates the body. So even to have a healthy body, you need a strong Vijnanamaya Kosha, that is the 4th level. So as I said, man is capable of living at all these 5 levels. He may start with Annamaya Kosha, he may develop his body and prana. You have these boxers and wrestlers and all the athletes who don't have to make much use of their mind. It's only manipulation of the body and hard training which gives them a very strong body and a very powerful prana which can uh, make them good athletes and good. But of course, there is this willpower, the mind, which is behind all that. Though people tend to neglect, it is the some people by sheer will they can overcome their physical disabilities or physical deficiencies, physical or the pranic deficiency which they have uh, because of genetic or because they inherit the same from their parents or maybe the racial deficiencies. Everything can be overcome with this third capacity, the capacity of the mind to develop a strong willpower. And that willpower helps the lower two layers. But also that willpower can be used to develop the higher two layers. That is the beginning of spirituality. When you say spirituality, or when Vedanta says you are in the kindergarten of spirituality, you may be religious, you may profess a particular faith, you may believe in certain dogmas and you may go to temples, churches, and mosques, but those are all the externals of religion. When you really come to spirituality, no matter which religion you belong to, the first thing that happens is that you start making the right choices. In Sanskrit or in Vedanta, it is known as buddhi. So we say man of steady wisdom. So what is wisdom? Now, at a gross level, we can just simply translate it as the power to make the right choices. So do we always make wrong choices? No, it's not so. Sometimes by mistake also we make right choices, even without a developed buddhi. Sometimes it is you may say, we are pushed into, as Sri Ramakrishna used to say, that whether you are pushed into the river or you jump into the river, you will get wet. So sometimes we are pushed to the spiritual path. Somehow destiny pushes us and we come. Sometimes we choose to come to the spiritual path. So either way, this buddhi has to be awakened. That is the whole essence of spirituality. So just below the highest spiritual level comes this power to make the wrong choices. That is where all our ethics and morality, moral life depends. Now, if you ask, why should you be unselfish? There's no logic. If you see, most of the selfish people seem to be very happy. So logically, you can't convince a person. He says, no, all these unselfish people who try to be unselfish are not successful, especially from the worldly point of view. So why not steal, rob, and do whatever it takes to become successful? Why should I be moral? So these questions cannot be answered so easily. Morality, that is a challenge before all religions. Some people say because it's a moral covenant that, as especially Judaism, they believe that there is a covenant between man and Moses was the one who had a covenant with God. That is why he laid down the 10 commandments. And following the 10 commandments without questioning is the goal of every person who claims himself to be a Jew. So each religion has a sort of covenant or some kind of understanding, and that is why we have to be moral. Because Moses said that these revelations came to me from God, and because you have to follow these things. But Vedanta says, yes, that is a good idea, that's a good motive to be moral, but that is not enough. Some people may say, I don't believe in, I do not belong, or even if I belong, I'm born in a Jewish family or in a Christian family or a Hindu family. Nothing can force me to follow all these scriptures. Scriptures may say anything, but I'll do what I feel is right. So how can you convince them? These covenants, these dogmas, these doctrines, these books, even Vedanta says the Vedas themselves are powerless if one does not decide, once buddhi is not awakened. That's why there is a beautiful verse in the Vedas, which is the only scripture in the world which says the scripture will not help you. Tatra Veda Aveda Bhavati. Means when the buddhi is awakened, When you see the importance of practicing spirituality, there your Vedas also are useless. They are useful at a lower level. Tatra means at that stage when a human being has a finely developed buddhi, that means the spiritual light comes to him and his wisdom is awakened. Then he doesn't have to depend on the scriptures. No books, no dogmas, no commandments. They are necessary at a lower level when people uh, just think that they have to follow certain commandments. You ask somebody, anybody who is a devout Hindu or a devout Jew or a devout Christian or a Islam Muslim, he will swear by his scriptures. He'll swear by Quran. He'll swear by the Ten Commandments or whatever the scriptures, Torah, and he'll swear by the Bible. All these things for them, for all of us, we may swear by Gita. Hindus have more choices. There are more, so many scriptures. So we may swear it because the Upanishad says, because Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says. But for a scientific person, a person who is scientific in the sense that he wants a rational explanation for everything. He wants some kind of evidence. Why should I follow? For him, you can't force morality. He will say, why should I become moral? Just because some book says I'm not going to do it. For example, somebody may argue that Newton may tell me there is a law of gravity, but unless I experiment with it and see, he is justified, and the science gives such people an opportunity. Say, here, if you don't believe, just see. This is how you can prove. This is how these laws work. So people were increasingly fascinated by this attitude of this scientific spirit in the physical world, of course, where you can test everything by verification, experimental verification. So Vedanta says, that is why we have titled this talk Vedanta and the Science of Human Possibilities. It's not just because some Upanishad says or Gita says or something like that. It's a science, just as any other science tells you to logically analyze it and follow it and make the right choice if you think it is correct for you, for your life, for developing your personality. And I have used the word human possibilities deliberately because we think our possibilities, a boxer may think his possibilities are unlimited as far as boxing is concerned, but that is just the physical possibility, or his pranamaya kosha. Somebody else may think that it is too gross a goal for me. I can employ hundreds of boxers and make more money. So he may be a businessman, he may use his intellectual skills, and he says, no, I don't want to fight myself. I can have a whole team to fight for me. So also you will find that people have different ideas, different goals in life. And the higher the goal, the more complex it becomes. That is what Vedanta says. So why people don't take to spirituality? That is the question which is answered. That human possibilities, physical possibilities, everybody understands. Yes, even a small child aspires to be a very strong person. But as he grows up, he thinks, no, this is not the goal. I want to be something higher than this. So his goals change, his attitude changes, his idea of greatness changes, his idea of human possibilities changes. So Vedanta says, why do you stop? Do you think physical possibilities are the only possibilities? The pranamaya kosha, you transcend that. When you have developed that, you come to the intellectual, the reactive mind, which you develop lot of skill sets that gives you a chance to become very successful in the world. But then, as Sri Ramakrishna used to say, don't stop. You just start moving, go forward. Go forward was the story that he used to tell. That story is worth repeating. He used to explain these things, how higher and higher possibilities are to be discovered in life. If we stop somewhere, for example, he said there was a woodcutter. It's a very simple story, but with a very, very deep meaning. He said there was a woodcutter who went and found lot of trees, and he cut lot of wood, and in the evening used to bring them back in the cart and sell it. He made a nice profit. But there were a wise man who was always walking through the forest. So he said, why don't you go a little inside, go forward? So he just followed his advice, went in, and he saw there were a lot of sandalwood trees, which he would not have discovered. He was happy with the wooden trees which he was selling. When he sold the sandalwood trees, he made a big fortune. That same man, that wise man, which in this case is like something like the Buddhi, said, don't stop, go forward. Then Sri Ramakrishna says that person listened. He was intelligent enough to listen, because he says, I listened to him last time. I found the sandalwood forest. So he goes in, he finds something else. He finds a huge treasure there. And then first he finds a mine of gold. And then he gives up his sandalwood, which was earning him a lot of money, but this gold earned him more money. Then that same gentleman said, why did you stop? Go forward. Then he finds diamonds and other things, and then he becomes a rich man. The idea is we explore our human personality by starting with the physical Annamaya Kosha, then we go higher, we develop the Pranamaya Kosha, we develop the intellectual kosha, that is Manomaya Kosha, then Vijnanamaya Kosha. And that Vijnanamaya Kosha, when it awakens, our spiritual life actually begins. Our spiritual journey is nothing but exploring the possibility of discovering that there is a higher possibility than the Manomaya Kosha. So we come to that when we start exploring, it is another entire different world. So this leads you to a higher possibility. That is why Vedanta and the science of human possibilities. So we should not stop just as the woodcutter was told by this person to go forward, not to stop. So also in our journey, we have to explore, at least before we die, we have to explore whether there are higher things that we can achieve in our evolution. Is this the highest that I am capable of? Or can I achieve more? That's the idea. So the Mundaka Upanishad, he says, the Rishi says that when you come, now we come to the last kosha, which is known as the more subtle. As I told you, we start from the Annamaya, which is gross body, Pranamaya, which animates the body, Manomaya, which enhances the mental capacities to manipulate the body for developing a lot of skills, physical, mental, and many other skills. There are so many skills. If you see, as I told you, Howard Gardner says, just don't think logical and analytical skills are everything. There is the musical skill, intrapersonal skills, interpersonal skills. He has at least a minimum of 9 skills which he thinks a human being is capable of developing. So multiple intelligence theory, that is what he says. But that is, even that multiple intelligence, if you develop all the multiple intelligences that he speaks of, even then there are skills higher than that. That is what Vedanta says, and that is what we are trying to explore now. So, but here now the problem arises. Once we reach the level of buddhi, which is, again, let me warn you, is very difficult. In fact, the whole of spiritual life begins by a small ritual in Hinduism, which is known as Upanayana. It is the Gayatri mantra, which is given by the father to the son. Unfortunately, in the Vedic ages, there is evidence that it was given to the daughter as well. But I don't know when, but 1,000 years of Mughal rule, and maybe when foreign ideas invaded Vedic religion, somehow it became a male-dominated society. But there is nowhere any evidence to say that this Gayatri, this Upanayana should be performed. Even today, society is so rigid in India that why can't this Gayatri mantra be given to girls at the age of 6 to 8? That is the period when this mantra is given. And the significance of this Gayatri is, it is a prayer so that your higher possibilities are explored. So it says Om Bhur Bhuvasvaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. Apparently, it's a very simple prayer. Many people repeat it. And unfortunately, it is dominated by men because father is supposed to give it to the son during Upanayana. But I have uh, seen some people who have, along with their boys, they have given this mantra to the girls also. Now, of course, because of internet, this mantra can be chanted by anybody. It should have been done long before, because girls have as much right to spiritual life as boys have. There's no mention anywhere in the Vedas that this is gender specific. There is no mention. So why can't this open? Anyway, it is just a ritual. The spirit behind the Gayatri mantra is the most important thing. It is a prayer, a Vedic prayer, discovered by one of the greatest rishis of Indian culture, where the rishi says, you have developed in the Gurukula, when the child, boy or girl is sent to the school, up to the age of 8, he develops a lot of skills. But they say the skill is incomplete without developing the Vijnanamay Kosha, without developing his buddhi. So, even at this young age, the boy or girl is supposed to develop the spiritual of intuition, the spiritual of taking the right choices, so that he makes less mistakes in life. He makes the right choice always. So, this mantra was given at a stage where the child starts thinking. 6 to 8, 8 was the age. If you see Shankaracharya's life also, you'll find that was the period when a person, apart from developing his body, mind, and his skills, has to develop the spiritual skill. So it began as early as that. But unfortunately, now the things have changed, and Gayatri Mantra or this Upanayana, in some cases, is done by very orthodox Hindu families just before marriage. It's ridiculous because they feel, because the priest will tell them, and that is the problem with this blindly following the ritual. They think without Upanayana he cannot marry. So before marrying he has to do the Gayatri, he has to take the Gayatri. So one day before the marriage, perhaps the priest will give him the Gayatri mantra, where he is supposed to get it at the age of 8. And he has to practice it till he comes to a marriageable age. That is the intention. But now it has been reduced just to a ritual which is to be done before marriage. So maybe one day before he becomes a brahmachari, which is of no use, and then next day he'll be marrying. So when does he get the time to develop that intuitive faculty which is necessary even to lead a very successful life in the world? So that is the essence of developing the Vijnanamay Kosha. The mantra says, all the mantras which are given during initiation have the meaning of Gayatri as the essence. Gayatri is a long prayer. It's not exactly a mantra as we have other mantras. It is a prayer which is addressed to the sun god, which is symbolic of light. It simply says, Dhimahi, and you let me explore or open the possibility of the buddhi, which is so far not developed in me. So, O Lord, O Sun, it refers, Savita means the sun. So the sun god, which is symbolic of spiritual light, it's not just the physical light, but the spiritual light, let that spiritual light, a particle of that light, enable me, enlighten me. Dhiyo yona prachodayat, let it enlighten my intellect. So again and again the child is supposed to pray, and by the time he develops his other skills, physical or otherwise, which go on parallelly, in the Gurukula these things were done. By the time he grows up and he reaches a marriageable age, or maybe an age where he starts earning money, by that time, or starts a profession, by that time he has enough intelligence, he is supposed to have developed that possibility of taking the right decisions and making the right choices in life, so that he leads not only a pleasant life but a very fruitful life. both to himself, his family, and to the society in general. So that is the idea behind this science of human possibilities as practiced by Vedanta. So there are certain things, there are certain techniques which we will discuss now, where apart from the Gayatri Mantra is just a symbolic ritual which initiates into the process. But there are certain things which form part of every religion. For example, when Moses said, "Speak the truth," Jesus said, whether you take the commandments, every religion or every major religion of the world speaks of the same great truths. They have realized it in their different ways. The scriptures may be different, but the common ideas are same. Truth is one of them. Holding on to truth, because whatever we do, if it is not based on truth, it will not last. Anything, even science, if the discovery, the process of discovery, because it was based on truth, all the scientific discoveries were made. They were authenticated, experiments were done, and if there was even a little element of untruth, that theory did not stand. That experimental verification failed, and you have to simply reject it. So that spirit of truth, the spirit of truth should be extended to our spiritual life also. So the Mundaka Upanishad, which is one of the important Vedantic texts, in the third chapter, first Valli and fifth and sixth verse, it says, "Satyena labhyas tapasa yesha atma samyak jnanena brahmacharyena nityam antah sharire jyotirmayo hi shubhro yam pashyanti yatayah kshina dosha." This is the Sanskrit verse from the Mundaka Upanishad. It's just like a commandment. You have commandments in other languages, in Hebrew, in English, in the Bible, in Quran, in different languages. But here it is in Sanskrit, the meaning is almost the same. Everybody speaks of the same truth, all the religions. This Atman, or this ultimate reality, which is the highest possibility. To realize this Atman is the highest possibility, which is resplendent, means fully bright, full of light and illumination. Not the physical illumination, but light of knowledge, which you are going to explore with the help of an enlightened buddhi. This Atman, which is resplendent and pure, which dwells in the body. See, it's the center of our personality. When you say exploring the human possibility, you explore all the possibilities, including the truth, which is the central core of your own personality. So this Atman, Satyana Labhyas Tapasa, this Atman which is resplendent, pure, dwelling in the body, whom a person of strict discipline. Now why this strict discipline? Tapasa means by strict discipline. Why strict discipline is required? For anything, any progress, even if you want to explore the physical possibilities, to become a good sportsman, you have to have a discipline. Otherwise the body can't be trained to excel in that particular field. So whether it is dealing with the body, with the prana, with the mind, the intellect, whichever possibility you want to explore, strict discipline, whom a person of strict discipline, that is tapasa, yesha atma, free from all traces of iniquity. That means there should be a balance in your life. Iniquity here means that there should not be extreme likes and dislikes. The whole Bhagavad Gita, if you say that, if you see, the definition of yoga is samatvam. Samatvam yoga uchyate. Samatvam means to maintain an equanimity or equipoise under circumstances which may try to disturb your mind. The mind, the society, the surroundings are always, the environment around you, the surroundings are always designed by Prakriti to make you unstable. And in the midst of that instability, you have to find that stability. That is the essence of spiritual life, essence of yoga. Samatvam yoga uchyate. That is what Bhagavan Sri Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, that Are you able to maintain that equanimity in spite of all the circumstances that are changing around you and making you lose your equipoise or equanimity or your mental balance? Are you able to negotiate all the problems with equanimity? The horrible war which Arjuna was facing, it was so difficult for him to even think of the consequences of the war. Forget fighting the war, but even to think of the consequences or the uncertainties of the war would make any mind unstable. Our minds become unstable when we face a small trivial problems of life. So you can imagine the worst possible situation which Arjuna found himself in. To maintain that equanimity, and Sri Krishna is telling him, you have to maintain equanimity. You fight your battle with the help of yoga, which helps you. Yoga, not in the limited sense of Patanjali's yoga, but the yoga of equanimity. All the 18 chapters describe yoga only, different yogas in Bhagavad Gita. But the yoga of equanimity is what is referred to here in this verse. That mind, that person who is through strict discipline has trained his mind in such a way which is not disturbed by strong likes and dislikes. In Patanjali's yoga, which we discuss on Thursday, Raj Yoga, it is known as raga and dvesha, strong likes and dislikes, and of course fear of uncertainty, fear of death, all those fears. These three things shake our mental poise. Mind is disturbed only because of these things. Anxiety because of uncertainty, because of we have strong likes and dislikes. We don't like to be in certain situations. We like to be in certain situations, and we try to manipulate our people, things, and the environment around us to always get the thing that we like, which always evades us. We always want the best things for ourselves. But when bad things come or when unfortunate things happen, we do not know how to face them. Whereas the truth behind this yoga, equanimity, is that both will come. No person will always be, will always traverse the smooth path. There will be obstacles, there will be troubles, there will be trials, tribulations. So, how to negotiate them? By treating both likes and dislikes. So, right from childhood, if you make the right choices and don't develop strong likes and dislikes, you see, all our trouble is because of these strong likes and dislikes. So, that is why it says, free from all traces of iniquity. All the traces that are left. I have strong likes, and when I don't get it, I get upset, I get anxious. I have a strong dislike towards certain persons, certain situations, and I always try to run away from it. And our whole life is spent in trying to run after the likes and avoid the dislikes that we have in life. And if there are too many, then our life becomes miserable. So, free from iniquity, it perceives it is by constant practice of truthfulness. When you say truthfulness, it is not just speaking the truth. It is accepting things as they are. That is the definition of truth. We think telling the truth verbally is truth. No, that is a part, that is spoken truth. But there is truth in thought, word, and action, and also in the mind. So Sri Ramakrishna used to say the tapasya, the discipline in this Kali Yuga is truth, just truth. Truth means to hold on to things as they are and endure them and try to maintain an equanimity in the midst of all these things. There are many situations in our life where we want things to go this way or that way. We would prefer if things go this way, but then things go the other way, and we don't know what to do, and our whole life is spent in empty hopes that things will be fine, things will be fine. Of course, one should have hope, but one should not expect that things will go this way or that way. I told you many times about a very old lady, very, very old devotee of ours who's now 98, almost very, very calm and collected person with a long record of spiritual practice and the amount of suffering she has undergone, especially when she came to this country, uh, escaping somehow the gas chamber in Germany and living a very, very difficult life. She has learned things the hard way. And she says, after the age of 60, when I finally came across Vedanta and found that what we asked, what did you actually achieve? She says, after so much struggle, I've achieved one thing. I'm not bothered now whether things go this way or that way. I've just calmly resigned myself. And you see what impact it has with so many problems. She is able to negotiate, and at the age of 98, she is able to maintain her equanimity with all the sicknesses. You can imagine now a person who has struggled all her life, the age of 98 says, I am not. That is what this verse speaks of. A person with free from all traces of iniquity. She says, I learnt it the hard way, but I have come to a stage, I don't know whether it is spiritual growth or it is definitely spiritual growth, but she says, now I have come to a stage where I am not bothered whether things go this way or that way. She had suffered from so many diseases, including cancer, endured it all, and in the midst of all these struggles, you can see that wonderful steadiness of mind, that equanimity which comes by a deep understanding of the spiritual nature of human personality. That is what he says. So this is attainable by constant practice of truthfulness, that is giving up likes and dislikes, self-control, right knowledge, and continence, that is brahmacharya. So that brahmacharya means it takes us towards the path of the gross. Anything that makes you gravitate towards the path of gross, multiplicity, the world of multiplicity, that is to be avoided. So spiritual people, in all the traditions, these are the common virtues which are expected of everybody. So then there is another verse, and uh, from this verse, the fifth verse, I just gave you the meaning. The sixth verse is Satyameva Jayate Nanratam Satyena Pantha Vitato Devayanaha. So this is the one of Satyameva Jayate Nanratam, or Satyameva Jayate. Just this portion is the national motto of our country. Truth alone triumphs. That is what was chosen after India became independent. So here it means that truth alone triumphs, not untruth. Non-rhythm. So non-rhythm has been removed. We have just taken the first, truth alone triumphs, which implies that all other things, the untruth will not triumph. Ultimately, untruth will lead to misery. By truth is spread out the path Devayana, that is the path of the gods, by which the seers means the people who are following the spiritual path, free from all desires, proceed where they reach the ultimate goal of life, or they explore the ultimate possibility, transcending all the 5 levels of existence which we discussed. So with the growing awareness of the spiritual self, a person recognizes his true nature, which is the innermost core of his personality. That is what is meant by exploring the limits of human personality. You transcend one after another, the 5 levels, and in our next class, I think we are running short of time. In the next class, we will discuss these 5 levels in greater details. It is with giving references to the Upanishads. It's not just a empty theory or a simple theory propounded by some author. It is something which is a result of the spiritual experiences of rishis for thousands of years, and they have come to a conclusion when they analyzed deeply into the nature of human possibilities, the nature of human personality. They went deeper and deeper. They didn't stop anywhere like that woodcutter. As Sri Ramakrishna said, don't stop, just start moving forward. And when you finally reach the goal of life, which is the goal of the Vedanta or goal of the Upanishads, they teach us a systematic scientific approach to the exploration of human possibilities, making our life on this earth and also beyond, if at all there is a beyond, because there is definitely this worry of death which no human being can get rid of. After everything, all the success that one attains, the possibility of leaving everything behind and going away, it can be a very fearful possibility, at least towards the end of one's life. One may not realize its gravity at a younger age because we think we have infinite time in hand. But as days pass, as we grow older, then we realize that we have to explore other possibilities. Just like if you want to go abroad, you have to get your passport, visa, and other things, make preparations for going there. After that, you don't even know what is in store for you after going there. So unless you know what is the place that you are going to, or where are you going, whether you will be surviving, something survives death, the basic questions of life and death, which the young Nachiketa asked, 14-year-old, those are the questions which we will explore. By exploring the different human possibilities, and finally we come to a stage where through the proper understanding of Vedanta or these Upanishads, we come to the conclusion that these are the immediate possibilities that we can explore. These are the possibilities which maybe we can explore as we grow mature, as we evolve, as our understanding gets better, as the power to make good choices increases. Systematically, we pass through all the different phases, because life is like that. Swamiji says every challenge motivates us to do better, to be a better evolution is nothing but struggle against circumstances which are trying to press you down. Swamiji defined life as a struggle or the effort that one makes to go against the circumstances trying to press it down. The life is the unfoldment of a being, of a human being, human personality, under circumstances which try to press it down. That is the simplest definition of life, evolution in life, which he gave to the Mysore Maharaja when he asked, "What is life? Can you tell me in brief?" So Vivekananda, based on this Vedantic idea of exploring human possibilities, said, life is the unfoldment of a being under circumstances that are trying to press you down. When circumstances force you to poverty, you try to get a good job, you get rid of poverty, you go up, you solve your problem, material problems, then you fall sick, you try to cure yourself. So circumstances are always trying to press you down. And success means you struggle against those circumstances, overcome it, and in the process, explore your human possibilities. And when you don't stop, when you go ahead, go forward, Vedanta says you will discover more and more possibilities, because more and more challenges will come. In the beginning, it may be a physical challenge, the survival, to get a job, and all these things. But as you go forward, there are other possibilities which you feel you should have explored, because those problems are not being solved by your achievements. And when you go further, more and more circumstances will force you to evolve further. That is the idea, to develop your life in such a way that you try to solve the problems not at the lower level but at the highest level, and reach fulfillment in life. So I'll conclude now. I don't think we have time for questions. Yes, there's one question. I'll just briefly try to answer it in the chat. So Raphael is asking, is consistently making God the center of one's mind or heart a way to equanimity? Obviously, yes, yes. You have hit the right point. You take the Bible, for example, Jesus says, the kingdom of God is within you. So what does he mean by the kingdom of God? A place where Everybody wants to know what this kingdom of God is, where they can get eternal life, a life where there is total equanimity. So if we are seeking equanimity, one has to seek it within. That's the idea. So in a way, yes, your question is consistently making, because we forget, consistently making God or the truth as the center of one's life. In fact, that is the essence of all spiritual life. Yeah.
Question, Swamiji.
Yes.
Some humans are born perhaps with a physical condition, like someone could be blind, for example, or have challenges with a particular internal organ. Does that Annamaya Kosha concern mean that there's necessarily a concern on the other four sheaths,
Yeah.
or could it be vice versa, and so forth?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the question, there is Tushar, who is sitting in front of me here. I am in fact at Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, as you all know. So a question has been asked. I don't think you could hear the question. The question was asked that suppose somebody has some defect in the body or the mind, that is Annamaya Kosha and the Pranamaya Kosha, there are certain deficiencies, maybe he is differently abled. So does that deter him, and does it affect the spiritual evolution? No. In fact, it may be a hindrance, but one can easily overcome, because the exploring the spiritual possibility means controlling the higher thing controls the lower. For example, it's the mind which controls the prana which controls the body. So we unfortunately go from bottom to top. But that is why I said in the very young age, you are taught to develop the Vijnanamaya Kosha, so that with that help, you can control the lower, whatever disabilities are there. But they are at the gross level. There may be one disability. There are people who are blind, but they are excellent in whatever other things. Even from the worldly point of view, Helen Keller was blind, deaf, dumb, but she became great. So the infinite possibilities that are, the more you go towards the higher, the core of your personality, more you go subtle, go deep within, easier it becomes to overcome the physical and mental possibilities. Any disability, nobody, we are not talking of person who is totally disabled, that all his organs are not functioning. He will be in coma. There's no question of any spiritual progress. But one or two disabilities, they may make life a little difficult for them, but spiritual possibilities itself, the spiritual pursuit itself means that you have to transcend those little difficulties, ignore them, and go from top to bottom. You control the bottom with the development that you make at the top. So one can overcome. So I'll conclude now. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.